Apple unveiled new privacy features at its annual showcase in California Monday. The company also announced that its revolutionary iTunes app will soon be a thing of the past. Jamie Yukas reports from Los Angeles.
Elaine, CBS News has confirmed that Apple, along with other tech giants Google, Facebook, and Amazon, are under federal investigation for possible antitrust violations. A congressional committee will soon hold hearings on whether these companies form a monopoly. The news comes as Apple rolls out its latest plans.
Apple CEO Tim Cook sounded upbeat.
You make the world a better place.
But Apple took a major swipe at the privacy practices of rivals Facebook and Google, offering customers a safer, more private place.
We're shutting the door on that abuse as well.
From how apps track you to what Apple sees or doesn't, the company laid out new rules and features.
You can choose to share your actual email address, or you can choose to hide it. And when you do, we'll create a unique random address that forwards to your real address.
Executives also announced the death of iTunes, which many users have complained is outdated. It will now be split into 3 separate apps:
Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, and Apple TV.
The company is hoping the apparent shift to services will make up for lackluster iPhone sales. The new Mac Pro was the splashiest device revealed, but with a price tag that could reach more than $10,000, many in the crowd groaned. Elaine?
Jamie Yukas, thank you. Apple unveiled a sign-in with Apple feature at the heart of its new strategy. Incoming anchor of the CBS Evening News, Norah ODonnell, spoke to Apple CEO Tim Cook about this feature after the conference. Here's part of their conversation.
When I listened to that today, that new innovation of that Apple sign-on, I thought, this is Apple taking a shot at the way Facebook and Google is using all of our data.
You know, we're not really taking a shot at anybody. We focus on the user. And the user wants the ability to go across numerous properties on the web without being under surveillance. We're moving privacy protections forward. And I actually think it's a very reasonable request for people to make.
Do you think Facebook cares about our private security?
I think that everybody's beginning to care more. People are becoming more aware of what's been happening. Many people are getting more offended. I think this is good because we need to shine a light on it. You can imagine an environment where everyone begins to think there's no privacy. And if there's no privacy, your freedom of expression just plummets because now you're going to be thinking about that everybody's going to know every single thing you're doing. This is not good for our country, not good for democracy.
Dan Howley joins us now. He's a tech editor for Yahoo Finance. Dan, thanks so much for joining us. As you heard in Norah ODonnell's interview with Tim Cook, the new sign-in with Apple feature is at the center of the company's privacy theme. Does this new feature appear to be a swipe at Apple's competitors?
I think it's somewhat of a swipe, more of a way for Apple to differentiate itself from its competitors. It's done a lot of that recently. Tim Cook himself has made several speeches pushing Apple's own privacy practices, differentiating themselves at CES this year, the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. They actually took out a huge building-sized billboard to point out that Apple pushes privacy more so than the likes of Google and Amazon. And they did that specifically while Google and Amazon were pushing their own smart home hardware that uses your voice and captures information about you that is then used to sell privatized ads. So I think it's more of a way for Apple to say, look, we're not those guys. We're not the Cambridge Analytica people. We are about hardware and software and protecting your safety. And I think that's exactly what they tried to do today.
So, Dan, what is Apple doing differently to protect user data than companies like Facebook and Google who have comparable features?
One of the main things that they do is they ensure that none of your data really that needs to or doesn't need to rather goes into the cloud or goes to their servers. They talk a lot about how they do on-device processing, and that's something that they've been pushing for quite a while now. And whereas something like Siri, for instance, might be doing more processing on-device, Google's own Google Assistant might go to the cloud and speak with the servers there to get information. So Apple likes to make sure that they do it on-device, and what that does is allows them to ensure that your data doesn't go to a server, it stays with your iPhone or your iPad or your Mac. That makes sure that God forbid anything happens, it's only there on that singular product. And they do that as well as using Face ID and Touch ID to make sure that all of your information is secure. Google does that to a degree, obviously, but Apple really is selling this as a product and making sure that people know that they are the privacy people. And that's something they've been pushing a lot lately.
Well, Apple's HomeKit Secure Video will analyze videos captured on Apple devices. How will this feature ensure that no one else is seeing your security camera footage?
So one of the things that happens when you use a in-home smart home security video is that that video has to be processed to ensure that it recognizes what's happening. There's things called object detection, people detection. That has to be processed. A camera can't just do that on its own. So what will happen is companies will send those to the cloud online to be analyzed and then send it back to your app to let you know there's someone in my house or it's just my dog running around. Apple wants to do that on device in your home. So what that'll do is use either your Apple TV or your iPad or something else that's in your home that's an Apple device to process it and then send you those alerts. And it's going to work with a few smart home cameras at this moment, but it's really an interesting way that they're trying to make sure your own personal video data, which is really private, I mean, that's an image of your home, isn't shared online with any other service. I think that's going to be a real big point of sale for a lot of consumers.
Well, Apple's senior vice president of software engineering revealed some new features to its location services, but he also said some apps may try to work around them using Wi-Fi or Bluetooth connections. What else can users do to avoid that workaround?
Yeah, this is a workaround where they basically use Wi-Fi signals where you would ping off of them with your device, not knowing, not even connecting to them. It's just your device recognizing a Wi-Fi signal is out there or a Bluetooth signal and then triangulating where you are. It's something that some apps use. The best way to avoid that is if you're not using your Wi-Fi on your device to simply turn it off. And that goes for Bluetooth as well. If you're not connecting to something, then just turn it off. That'll make sure that these apps can't get access to your information and your location. And Apple is working to make sure that those workarounds get shut down as well. But in the meantime, I would just simply turn it off if you're not using it.
Really good advice. So, Dan, what else stood out to you at the conference?
One of the things was a massive new Mac Pro that they announced. It's for video editors, photo editors, developers. It's going to be an absolute behemoth when it comes out. They also announced a 6K display that's $4,999. That's just for the display, not the stand. The stand that the display sits on is another $1,000. And this is really a caliber display that's just made for professionals. They went over the specs on it. It sounds absolutely incredible. I got to see it. It's gorgeous. I want one for myself. I don't think my wife's going to let me spend that kind of money on a screen, but those were two of the big standouts that I really enjoyed from the show.
Wow, I'm going to have to check that out myself. All right, Dan, Howley. Dan, thanks a lot.
Thank you.